Good afternoon, everybody. Shavua Tov, and welcome to the Israel Brief, brought to you by Lay of the Land. I'm your host, Raleen Marks, with the top stories every Monday to Thursday, right here on this platform and on our YouTube channel at the Israel Brief. And if you want to help get Israel's side of the story out to the masses, which of course we would love for you to do, please click on the subscribe button and don't forget to share our content. But we hope that you're all doing well, that you're safe, that you're healthy, that your loved ones are also healthy. But let's take a look at the top stories making headlines. Last night, Tseva Adom, or Code Red, sirens rang out across Gaza-enveloped towns, including the city of Sderot, as rockets were fired from the Gaza Strip into Israel. There were no casualties and no damage reported, but the Iron Dome did intersect. In response to the rocket attacks, the IDF struck underground Hamas targets in the Gaza Strip. More action, this time on our northern border. The IDF earlier today spotted four individuals coming from the Syrian border into the southern Golan Heights and planting what looked like an IED. The terrorists were neutralized and no IDF troops were harmed. At the moment, we don't know which group or clan or terror organization they belong to, and we've yet to hear comment coming from Syria. And in other news, we look, as we do every day, to the COVID-19 situation and how it's affecting Israel. And last night, in a conference to Israelis, the new commissioner on COVID-19, Professor Ronnie Gamzu, said that slowly we are starting to get a handle on this second wave, and he thanked the IDF for all their efforts. Now, there has been conflicting reports, one from the John Hopkins Coronavirus Research Center. Wow, that's a big one. I'm going to say it again. Johns Hopkins Coronavirus Research Center. There, I got it right this time. He reported that Israel has one of the lowest mortality rates with regards to coronavirus. However, just moments ago, Prime Minister Netanyahu is saying that we have one of the highest morbidity rates. And he says that although we have reached a plateau, we are still at a stage where the morbidity rate is high. Earlier today, Health Minister Yuli Edelstein saying that we are managing to get the rate of infections coming down. So I don't know if this is like scaremongering tactics on the behalf of the Prime Minister trying to get everybody to adhere to the laws, but these stats are speaking for themselves. And even though there was a decrease in the amount of testing this weekend and an increase today, the numbers of infected are still under 1,000. And a lot of controversy today with reports that only 19 more beds were added across the country to take care of critical coronavirus patients, and that apparently beds were taken from other wards and put into coronavirus wards or for coronavirus patients, leaving many who had needed surgeries unable to have that. And also criticism that due to a lack of funding, dedicated nurses weren't getting the training that they needed. But let's take a look at those stats. And of course, we're following the progress with coronavirus here in Israel very, very closely, especially as we are gearing up to open our skies to civil aviation later this month. So at the moment, the stats are as follows. Since the start of the pandemic, 73,231 people have tested positive, 541 people have passed away, and at the moment, there are 25,167 people currently infected, with 344 in serious condition, and 47,523 people have made full recoveries. And the hope is that we bring the number of seriously infected down and get those numbers coming down. And our last story today takes us to the celebrity world. We've been speaking a lot over the last couple of weeks about certain celebrities out on social media making anti-Semitic comments. Last week we had the famous Twitter walkout, and the story on that is up on our website at www.layoftheland.online. You can read it. It's called No Safe Space for Jew Hate, and it's had a real impact because just moments ago, Facebook announced that the French comedian Dieudonné, or however you pronounce it, apologies if I haven't pronounced it correctly, who has taken a lot of criticism for his not just anti-Semitic comments but Holocaust denial, making fun of Holocaust victims, has been banned effectively from Facebook. So this is starting to have impact. But what of the rest? We covered Nick Cannon, the former America's Got Talent host, and his comments that were deemed anti-Semitic, and over the last week he has made a real effort to educate himself. He observed Tisha B'Av, the fast of Tisha B'Av, last week, and he's been reading Barry Weiss's excellent book on anti-Semitism, really understanding where we're coming from and making a commitment to work and to understand why Jews are concerned about rising anti-Semitism a lot better. Also, Ice Cube, the rapper, another celebrity, come up for criticism about his anti-Semitic comments. Well, he has spoken to the Zionist Organization of America's leader, Mort Klein. They had a conversation which apparently ended on quite a positive note, looking at ways for the black community, the Jewish community, to work together. And more recently, a lot of criticism against Seth Rogen, the Canadian-born comedian and actor, for his comments saying that he doesn't really get why Israel is important, why it matters. And he reportedly had a conversation with the head of the Jewish Agency, Isaac Herzog. And he reiterated that his comments were in jest. He does support the state of Israel, and sorry if he hurt anybody. And he walked back that apology today, tweeting saying, "My mother made me call." So whether that's another thing said in jest or it isn't, as Isaac Herzog explained to him, we don't mind people criticizing Israeli policy. It's the national sport of Israelis. But we do have issues when it comes to people making comments that deny us legitimacy. And that's what Seth Rogen's comments were taken as saying, that, there's no legitimacy to Israel as a country existing. And this is why we get so angry and we find it profoundly hurtful. So we hope that Rogen took cognizance of what Isaac Herzog had to say, but many of us are still active out there in social media, making sure that our rights, our indigenous rights, our rights to the land, our rights to be Zionist are heard loud and proud. So those are the top stories making headlines today. But before I leave you, we do have to acknowledge the 700 British artists who signed a petition saying "Rock Against Racism." We thank them for taking a stand. They want to root out racism of any kind, including anti-Semitism, and they refer to the Holocaust permanently. People like Dua Lipa, Little Mix, Niles Rodgers, some real big names in the mix there. Notably missing, of course, are people like Roger Waters, Madonna, and Brian Eno. Just saying. And Peter Gabriel. Just saying. But thank you to the 700 who've come out very firmly. So those are the top stories making headlines today. Don't forget, you can check out our content online at www.layoftheland.online. Find out why ties between the US and Israel are unbreakable. We bring you the speech by leading businessman and philanthropist Simon Fellick. Also check it out on Facebook. Give us a share, and while you're there, give us a like or a follow. Our community is growing. Please be a part of it. We're also on Twitter at Lay of the Land with the number 5. And as mentioned earlier, on YouTube at the Israel Brief. Click on that big red subscribe button. And I'm Rolene Marks, bringing you today's edition of the Israel Brief, and we'll chat again tomorrow.